3, 4.
Welcome to Off Panel, Sketch.com's weekly podcast. This week, we have a rare double feature for guests, as the team behind the upcoming Heartthrob at Oni Press joins the show. It's Chris, Sebela, and then Robert Wilson IV are joining the show. Thanks for joining the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to start off with a really awkward conversation, just because I want to, kick it off on the right foot. Chris, Robert and I both have sweet Roman numerals in our names, and I don't know if you do. Do you have a Roman numeral somewhere hidden in your name?
I have one hidden in my signature, but it's just a weird flourish that I have. When I trail out the A at the end of Sebela, I put two hash marks there, and I've definitely gotten junk mail that has been addressed to Christopher Sebela II because they just did it based on my signature, I guess. So technically no, but unofficially yes.
So signature wise, you have a Roman numeral. See, I'm David Leroy Harper II. I am a second. I don't know why I'm not a junior, but Robert and I got that going on in a fully legit stance, but I don't sign it, so people don't really know that I'm a second.
Is there a reason why you don't go for it?
I do it on official documents, but there's really no reason to include it, I guess. I just always forget.
I would use it all the time, honestly.
Yeah. It is pretty regal
fancy
sounding, especially because my middle name is Leroy.
Yes, but I think Robert has it all over everybody. There's something very majestic about the Roman numeral 4. It commands respect.
Yeah, IV. If I had that, I would definitely be using it every time, no matter the situation.
Do you find that's the case, Robert?
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, my name is Robert Wilson, and there's literally 16,000 of those in the United States alone. So I kind of need it.
It's a good differentiator.
Yeah, it's necessary.
So the reason why you guys are on here naturally is to talk about Heartthrob, your guys' new book from Oni Press. And I want to ask, you're getting pretty close to the release of Heartthrob. I think when this runs, it'll be 2 weeks out. How are you guys feeling? Are you nervous on the approach?
Yeah,
sure.
I am for sure. This is my first creator-owned book that's mine. I did the issue of Bitch Planet, but I don't own it. And I did Knuckleheads at Monkey Brain, but this, I don't know, this is just on a whole different scale, and it feels very real all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was going to ask because I knew this was your first you did Knuckleheads like you said, but this is your first full out series launch. Well, Chris over there is a seasoned veteran of the game at this point.
Sure, but I'm still I dread the day that I'm not nervous about a book coming out, because I feel like that means I screwed up somewhere. I don't know, for better or for worse. I really thrive on that feeling of oh, what did I do? Did I
existential dread?
Yeah. Well, I tell this story a lot, but it's before the first issue of High Crimes came out. This was a week and a half before it came out. I stopped over at my friend Brian Chirilla's house, and we were smoking cigarettes outside of his house, and then he was saying something, and I felt this ball move up my esophagus, and it was oh, I'm about to throw up. So I put my finger down, just put my finger up to Brian, hold on 1 second, and then turned and threw up in his bushes. And I felt immensely better.
Why was that? Why did that happen?
I think it was just I was carrying the stress around of okay, this is my first solo book.
And it just all kind of hit you.
Yeah, I had been, immensely sweating it in the lead up to it. And I think it just caught up to me, and I was just okay, my body was just listen, you need to purge this, and we can move on and get to the release day and not die before that. So, so it's not that bad. now, but I still get crazy nervous like before, especially like a first issue comes out.
I think you're right, though. I kind of wonder what it would be like if you just stopped being nervous. Like, I wonder if like David Simon gets nervous.
I don't know. I assume he probably has to. Like,
Yeah.
It just feels like, like there's never any way to tell, like, this thing that you've spent years laboring over, like how it's going to go over. Like, it could be the greatest thing in the world. And then like, especially for like David Simon or someone, you get stuck with a bad time slot and suddenly like nobody's watching. And I don't know. Comics kind of feels the same way. And it's like, this thing's been in progress for like the last 3 years. And it's like, oh Jesus! Like now it's finally like, I don't know. There's those first 3 years were just like a lot of speculation and like, wouldn't that be fun? And then you're approaching like, oh, they're actually going to send it to a printer and then it's going to go to stores and then people are going to read it and tell you what they think about it, and that's just terrifying.
Did you have that moment when DC announced Rebirth and you're like, oh God, please let this be any month but April?
Is that when it's happening? It's happening later. Right?
No,
it's in June.
It's happening later. But they made the announcement, and I was just like, of course, DC. Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't. No, I mean, I'm not worried about like big two stuff. Like, because it feels like those guys are going to steamroll over everybody else anyway. So no point getting. And I don't even like. I don't know. As long as like we're not coming out against like the first issue of a new Brian K. Vaughan book or something, like, then I'm cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to imagine though if they like announce they're like, yeah, so we have this Rebirth thing coming on, and we're going to release all 52 number ones on April 13th, and you guys are like,
yeah. That was like what was running through my mind.
That would be pretty horrifying. I guess I hadn't even thought about that because it's kind of like, for retailers and stuff, like that kind of thing is like a freight train, because it's like you can't not order it, and depending on when it or how it's released and when it's released, it could just like impact. There's like an area of effect around it and everything.
Totally.
So you started talking about like 3 years. I guess I hadn't really thought of like this book being in development for that long, but I guess I didn't really know. But I'm curious, like, do you guys have like, is there a meet cute to the story of Robert and Chris? Like, how did you guys first get together to start doing this?
Well, Robert, you can go for it.
Well, Chris and we've known each other for a few years now. I guess mostly because of our monkey brain connections, because we were both kind of part of that, I don't know, like freshman class of monkey brain books. Mm-hmm. But Chris had kind of, I guess, pitched Heartthrob long before I was attached. And it was at Emerald City last year that Chris and Charlie Chu, the editor of the book, basically came up to me and were like, hey, we've got this book and we think that you would be good for it. Like, do you want to do this book? And, I guess basically just over the course of the next few weeks, everything just kind of fell into place.
Mm-hmm. And you'd been developing it for a while, Chris. So like what changed after Robert came on? Like, does the book change dramatically once you have like, Robert has a very specific artistic voice. Like how does the book change, I guess, when you have an artist fixed on the book, I guess?
Well, I mean, it's just, now who you're writing for, and like you have a vague idea of like what everything is going to sort of look like in your head. So I definitely I always try to like ask people when I start working with them like what how many panels is too much, how many panels is too little, stuff like that. Like those are the like really quick fast adjustments you make, is like trying to hit a sweet spot that works for your collaborator. So you're not because some, like, working on High Crimes, like, Ibrahim told me to load the pages with panels, so that's what I did. So there's that immediate effect, and then just, like, the other effect is just, like, us working on the book together, and, like, Robert and I talking about it, and then, like, seeing pages of his, like, suddenly we'll like, you have this character in your head for so long, and then when you actually start to see them, like, moving around and the world being built around them, it gives you attachment to them, to, like, oh, like, now I know who this person completely is, and, like, they become a bit more real for you, and that definitely helps the process a lot.
Yeah, I feel like in some ways me coming on board might have really changed the tone of the book. Like, it hadn't even occurred to me before we got this quote from Matt Fraction that, like, oh yeah, this book has some pretty weird and kind of dark stuff in it. Like, it just didn't occur to me. Like, I had drawn 3 issues and it never dawned on me. But it's just like my personality is basically, like, optimistic to a ludicrous degree. And, like, I guess I just didn't see it. And so that greatly affects the way I approach drawing the book. And I don't know, it kind of changes everything.
Like, so now that that Matt Fraction has, like, released or revealed the fact that it's, like, kind of darker, like, do you feel like from 4 on you've kind of been approaching it differently, or do you? I don't know.
Oh, not at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I feel like I approached this kind of darker subject with, I don't know, it'd be like, I don't know, like asking Wes Anderson to direct, oh, dang it, why can't I remember his name? Like a Scorsese script, Like, it changes everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the plot, but it changes the way that the reader, that the audience, I guess, perceives the plot. It changes their feelings towards the characters. It's like it affects every part of how the audience absorbs the story.
That was one of the interesting things I found about, like, the first issue was, like, it inherent, like, the plot wise, it could be dark. I mean, you have, like, a character who is going through, like, she needs a heart transplant, and she goes through this horrible thing, and she gets screwed over by her job. Well, not to spoil too much, but she has a tough time, let's just say that. And then she, like, pursues, like, a life of crime. I feel like all of that's in the solicit, right, roughly speaking? Yeah. So, like, you have this, it easily could be dark, but I feel like one of the interesting things about the first issue is it's weirdly, like, it's a very enjoyable read. Like, it's just got, like, a vitality to it that I think a lot of it comes from your art, and also it's just like I don't know, the characters just feel very lively when I'm reading it and everything, and it's interesting because, like you were saying, like, Fraction kind of noted that it is dark, but it doesn't feel dark. So that, I don't know. I don't really even have a question there. It's just interesting to read like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is exactly what I'm talking about.
Now, what is your guys' like creative process like? Are you pretty communicative as you work, or is it really you just kind of do your own thing when you're doing your thing?
I mean, it feels like we're pretty communicative. Like, we definitely, like, I've been, I had the first 3 scripts done before Robert came onto the book, but ever since then, so those were kind of, at least on a script level, we're locked in, and then Robert, of course, like, changed stuff to make it actually work and be better. So, but then, ever since then, like, I've definitely been picking his brain about, like, here's some stuff I'm thinking about doing for this issue or for the next arc, or, like, running stuff by him and, sort of leaving the channels open. But, I think we try not to get in each other's way mostly. Like, I try to just go and do a script and then And then, if he has notes, then I will address them. And then when he goes off and does thumbnails and everything, like, he'll show us and ask us what we think, but it's not like there's no like, like, oh, hey, I finished this one page of thumbnails, like, take a look.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's, sort of, we're all grown-ups and we all know how to do our jobs. So there's a confidence that, like, okay, they're going to go off and do their job, and then I'll see it when they've hit a stopping point. So.
Right. And on your side, Robert, like, are you, one of the things I'm always interested in, especially in like creator-owned books, is like how closely like the members of like the art team are working. So like with like you and Nick, did you guys like talk out like the color palette in the book pretty early on, or is it really just like Nick's a pro, Nick does his thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, Nick is, certainly super professional and, very experienced. And a big part of the reason why we chose Nick and why I asked for Nick was his palettes, was his mood, and the way he contributes to the tone of the books that he's working on.
Mm-hmm.
So to a large degree, I do stay out of the way. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth when you're working with a new colorist for the first time, but a lot of that is just kind of like feeling each other out. And because he works with so many different artists and different types of artists, like he works with this crazy range from like, Michael Avon Oming to the most mainstream of mainstream, like superhero guys. And you have to approach those kind of things differently. Like the whole geometry of the world changes depending on the type of artist you're working with. So you can't really approach, different artists in the same way.
Yeah,
So
sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say there's no like template or universal style that you can use to color all comic artists.
Right. You can't go like one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we definitely went back and forth just talking about just kind of the approach, mostly the approach to rendering, because I have ideas in my mind of how I want my work to be rendered, and I spent a lot of time doing commercial illustration and concert posters and all kinds of stuff like that where I colored my own work, which means that I have this kind of like, I don't know, almost like a platonic ideal of coloring in my head that, no one can attain, not even me. Yeah, I've never been able to do it, but it's like I know what I want even more so than probably most other comic artists, just because I've spent so much time doing it myself. So that was interesting. But I mean, Nick and I have such a like, I don't know, like just easygoing relationship. Like we'll just get on the phone and talk things out, and because I'll normally email him notes when we get an issue, and a lot of the times he'll, come back and explain his reasoning for doing something that seemed weird to my sensibilities at first. And when I hear his explanation, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that is actually a super intelligent storytelling choice. Like, I think Nick is he's so intuitive about storytelling. Like, he does such a great job contributing to the mood and even like the theme of the books that he colors. Yeah, I think Nick is pretty great.
I have to ask, once you actually somehow achieve that platonic ideal of color, are you just gonna like retire from comics forever, or just like start crying or something like that? Will it be this glorious moment?
Yeah. Oh man, I have no clue. I would hope that I just kick it into high gear and produce as much as I can before I die.
This seems fairly legit. So I have to ask. I mean, I've been basically since I read the first issue, I hadn't listened to Fleetwood Mac's rumors since I was a kid because my mom was like obsessed with Fleetwood Mac, and I liked it, but at the same time, I guess I just didn't grow up listening to the same things my mom did because maybe it's some sort of like teenage rebellion thing. But
Sure.
I love the album. I've been listening to it a lot lately. But how did Rumors become, or Fleetwood Mac and Rumors become like the jam for Cali? Like was that something you decided from the start, Chris, or was that like, I don't know. I'm just curious about details like that.
Yeah, like, so I mean, it was a weird process of getting to what the story was going to be. Like, I knew that I wanted to do a high book, and I knew I wanted it set in the 70s because that way you don't have to deal with cell phones and everything else that makes robbing things really hard these days. Like, I like, the fact that we can go back to that era where, it was like, it was still hard to places, but it was certainly a lot easier to get away with it. And then I don't know. Then when I was trying to like zero in on a year, I've been obsessed with Fleetwood Mac like for I don't know, maybe since like 2008 or so. About when I seriously got it, because I always thought of them, as like, oh, that's a mom band. Like that's not. I could turn on the radio and just like, if I wait long enough, I can hear, Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow or something. But like, it was on the, I remember what it was. It was, I was listening to The Best Show with Tom Sharpling, and he had played a song from Tusk called The Ledge, which is like this weird Lindsey Buckingham, like punk song. It's weirdly atonal and like, but it's really a jam. And I was like, well, I never expected that from Fleetwood Mac. So that started me down the road. And then I just like, it's one of those bands where like their personal history is as interesting as the music, if not more so at times. And I really, I love a band where, like not only do they have like an interesting catalog, and the history of Fleetwood Mac is completely nuts. Like it's a crime saga unto itself. But like, like when they made Rumors, everybody was sleeping with everybody else, like, and people were getting seriously into drugs, and it's like, and that was on the verge of them like making their most successful thing ever. So I don't know. It like, I think it almost started as a joke. Like, I remember telling Charlie, I was like, yeah, and like Fleetwood Mac's going to be all over this book. But like, at the time when Rumors came out, it was everywhere. Like it was, it was a huge hit, and you couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. So I there was something I really liked about having them as sort of this touchstone, and how some of the band's interpersonal dynamics were things that like I thought would be relevant to the interpersonal dynamics of like Callie and Mercer and whoever else sort of wanders into their circle. So it was sort of like picking, like this is our, like what are we going to put on our flag? Like, well, we'll put Fleetwood Mac on our flag, and that will be sort of like our compass that we follow. So it was nice just sort of like, okay, picking it and being like, okay, this is a thing. And then I just kept going further and further down. So like the first issue starts on February 4th, 1977, which is the day that that Rumors came out. So just like deeper and deeper. And then, when Robert got it, he was super into it too. I remember him sending me a text that was like, I can't remember the wording of the text, but it was about how we were incorporating Rumors into the book, and it was like this deeply technically worded text, but it made me so excited. I was like, this is like everything I've dreamed of.
Man, it was something about Watchmen, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something about Alan Moore, and like it was just the way he worded it was like, holy shit! Like I can't wait to see this book now. Like, so yeah, it was, like, I don't know. And I've never really seen I guess maybe like those Blue Monday books that China Cluxton Major did back in the 90s. Like those books like definitely have like sort of singular soundtracks, but I haven't seen a comic that just like picks a band and then it's like, okay, this band is like what we're following. Like this band is like a thing unto itself in our universe. So yeah, playing with stuff like that too was always like, how am I going to do this? I don't know. And then making it work.
Now I really want to know what that text is, because if you somehow paired Fleetwood Mac with Alan Moore and Watchmen, it probably makes it one of the most spectacular texts that's ever existed.
I'll see if I can scroll through and find it while we're talking.
Well, I think it's funny that you're talking about the difficulties of bank robbing on like, you know, in modern days, because it seems like that would be horrible, but it's interesting because The Fix comes out the same day as your guys' book, and like that book is almost entirely about how horrible it is to rob people now that like we're in modern times. So it's interesting that you went the opposite route and they went totally leaned into that route, and you guys are both coming out on April 13th. But very random. So I wanted to ask, like, you know, it is taking place in, you know, the 70s and everything. And that means, of course, you're going to have era specific details worked in, from, you know, like the hair to like, I love the part. I mean, I don't love the part, but I thought it was very fitting when the doctor was blowing smoke in the face of the woman who recently had a heart transplant.
Yeah.
Like that was an era specific detail that wasn't like obviously an era specific detail unless you think about it. But so when it comes to those details, like, what kind of research do you guys put in to make sure you get those things right? Or is that even something that's like super important to you?
Oh man, I put too much research into the book for sure for my own well-being, but it's also like something that there's so much information available about the 70s that almost makes it impossible to like quote unquote get it right, if that makes sense, you know. Like it seems like it would almost be easier to get a book right that's set in the 1800s, because like, you know, no one can really be like, well, that's not you know, that's not how Detroit was in September of that year. Like there are actually people very much alive and who are at the places that this book takes place in during that period. So I don't know. I definitely try. I think the thing that I aim for most is just getting the feel and tone right, which is also kind of weird because I have never been to the 70s. I just missed it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of film watching, and like my favorite thing that I have are these books of Sears catalog ads.
Yes.
And it's like I've literally got like 500 pages of books worth of Sears catalog clothing ads, and it's some of the wackiest stuff. But it's Sears, so it's like middle America, you know. It's not that wacky. Like that was normal. Yeah.
That's amazing. I was going to actually ask you if you had, because like it seems like two of the most essential elements would just be basically hair and clothing, and it seems like those Sears catalogs would probably run the gamut for both of those things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some bizarre things in there. But one of my I bought way too many books about 70s stuff. One of my favorites was this advertising book. And there's a whole section in this book of magazine ads where it's like underwear ads, mostly for dudes. And these, it's so over the top, man. It's so hilarious because I feel like in the 90s and, you know, aughts, American culture and maybe Western culture in general has gotten maybe a little bit more, you know, conservative or modest.
Yeah.
Because, man, some of these ads that run in, you know, like Time magazine are just nuts. Yeah, just super, super sexual and very hairy.
Very hairy. People can't help that, Robert. That happens. I mean, that could possibly describe me. I don't want to talk about it too much.
Yeah,
that could possibly describe
me. Well, look, man, and it's not even just the body hair. I mean, facial hair, just like
Everything?
Voluminous. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Chris, you're probably not looking through Sears catalogs, but I mean, were you kind of digging deep into that? Were you trying to get things right, or were you really just focused kind of on the characters and everything?
I try to get, my operating principle with books is like you try and build a solid enough foundation of reality that you can do a bunch of like crazy shit on top of it. Like as long as you have that sort of first layer that like everything passes the smell test. So yeah, so I mean a lot of my research was into like heart transplants and
I actually watched 2 entire heart transplant surgery videos.
Holy shit.
Yeah, man, it was nuts.
Do you just like find those on YouTube or what?
Yeah. There are all kinds of operation videos on YouTube. Yeah, it's nuts because they just sew it back in. Like they put a heart in and they sew it together, and that is it.
I have to admit, I was like, after I read that, I spent a little bit too much time thinking about heart transplants because I'm like, that just seems like, I know it's been going on for a while now, but it still just seems like vaguely impossible in my mind. It's like,
sure.
How can you do that?
Yeah. I will tell you how they do it. They do it with a saw and a huge pair of scissors and a bunch of thread and a needle. Like that's it. It's nuts. It was like watching my dad work on the house when I was a little kid. Just like, oh, we got to take out this cabinet and just saw it out. And that's what they do.
I think I have all of those things in my garage, so theoretically I'm capable of doing that myself.
I believe in you, David.
I hope I don't get into a situation where I have to do that.
Where it's necessary?
Yeah. I don't think I would. I don't think I would deal with the pressure of doing a heart transplant very well. No, it wouldn't be a good thing. So I have to say, as far as first issues go, I don't know. It always kind of seems to me like first issues are kind of tricky because it's like you want to hook people, but you don't want to give away too much, and you want to like, I don't know, I don't want to say value because that makes it seem very consumerist, but I mean you want to give something somebody will get hooked on and want to keep buying afterwards. And for me, reading that first issue, like you get a great lead character, and then like you kind of get teased Mercer. You don't get there's some Mercer, but we don't get everything from Mercer. There's a really fantastic 10,000 foot view hook. It's extra size. I mean, it's like 28 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you even have a cliffhanger. So and like I said, it also makes me want to listen to Fleetwood Mac all the time. So that's an added plus. But like, obviously you want to start any comic successfully, but was it a goal for you guys to kind of go big with this first issue so you can really hook readers?
Yeah, I mean, that's always, that's for me at least, like that's always the goal, is to sort of come out of the gate strong.
Mm-hmm.
And give people enough that, that like they become invested enough that they will give you the room to sort of then like maybe in the second issue you meander a little bit, but like if you've done your job right on the first issue, then they're sort of they've already got enough that it's not like okay, I need this and this. I don't know, it's a weird balancing act because you want to cover as much ground as you can with character stuff that like a reader feels like they know this person to some degree, but you don't want to like, you can't just like, okay, here's literally everything that makes them tick, and that's the brunt of it, and we're not going to tell you anything. It's you're starting from a point, and hopefully the characters are at a point that intrigues the readers and it works in tandem with the plot. And that one was a hard first issue to write, and I kept going back to Oni and being like, can I get like 2 more pages? Because it was, I had initially tried to write it as a 22 pager, and I was like, I'm going to need some more pages. And they're like, okay, well, how's about 4 more? And I was like, perfect. And then I went back, and then I was like, I was like, can I get two more? Like 2 more, and I'll be right there. They were like, yeah, okay. So, and I've never, I've never had like an oversized first issue. So, but I wanted to. It felt like from where we go after the first issue that I wanted to give everybody as much of a sort of primer on like here's what you can expect, and here's all the moving pieces right now, and hopefully hopefully it hooks people enough that they'll at least come back for the second one to see, and then that's a whole other job we have to do. So
yeah, I mean that's one of the interesting things about comics today is like a lot of comics are pretty, I mean, you don't want to speak poorly of anyone, but I mean, it does seem like a lot of comics are kind of written for trade, and like that's secretly, I think one of the reasons why like Brian K. Vaughan is as successful as he is like a lot of his comics, like it seems like every single issue of one of his comics ends on a cliffhanger, and it's like you kind of have to come back, and that's. I guess that's one of the nice things about that issue is it definitely doesn't feel like it's written for trade. It feels like, you can pick up this and then you're like, shit, I got to find out what happens next. Like it's got that great feel for it. So it's a welcome change for this reader, at least.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
But as Chris knows, because I've pestered him about this type of stuff before, I'm really interested in that weird period between like a book getting announced and it actually getting released, because in a lot of ways that's like the stretch of time that really like weirdly defines the success of a book. So what have you guys been doing to promote the book besides talking to me?
Robert.
Yeah, man.
I'll let Robert go.
Why?
I can go if you want, but
that's fine. I'll go.
Robert's been, kind of our secret genius in terms of like, I don't know, like I've never worked with an artist who's been like sort of this on top of all the sort of promotional stuff.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, I came from an advertising background too, and I don't know. Comics is kind of my second career, right? And it's taken me a really long time to get good enough to do it professionally, and then it's also just to be able to get work. So I feel like maybe I have a bit more fire in my belly than your average 33-year-old comic book artist. Like I feel like I've got more to prove, and maybe I want people to read the book. I really, I don't know, I care about my audience, I care about the book reaching people, and so I put a lot of effort into spreading the word and just getting it in front of anyone who might enjoy it. So, I mean, we did a lot of the regular stuff, like, asking our comic, professional comic creator friends for quotes, which, we have been super, super lucky so far to have gotten so many like really amazing quotes from people that I would really freak out to even just have met 40 years ago, and now they're saying nice things about, this book I drew. That's surreal. I mean, the whole thing's surreal. Drawing comics is surreal, but that is nuts. That I posted a Matt Fraction quote today on Twitter. That was, man, I don't know. That kind of stuff, I don't know how to react to it still. Asking for quotes. Social media has been big. I've been really trying to use Facebook because I feel like I think that's a blind spot for a lot of comic creators because Facebook isn't really fun for me to use. So, I mean, I don't use it personally. I don't like it. Like, I don't need to know which of my relatives are racist, or like, I just don't want to know, but as a platform to reach people, to communicate with people, it's super valuable. I'm trying to think, Chris, what else? We went to Comics Pro. That was awesome, getting to meet a bunch of retailers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. There are so many retailers that were just like stoked to talk to us and to be there. And man, that feels so great to talk to these people who are really like our partners, right?
Right.
And for them to be excited to talk to us and just to be our partners, man, that was really energizing for me. So, yeah, I love the retailers who we've met with and, who we're going to be partners with in the future.
I think that's a really good way to put it, because I know a lot of times people say it's like the retailer is like your real customer and stuff like that. And I think that's true. But at the same time, it, like you said, it's a partnership, because, you want the book to do well because it's your book, but like they want it to do well because if they buy a bunch of comics and they don't sell, then that's going to be a problem. So it's like you guys have to work together for it to find the audience. And I don't know. I mean, that was one thing I really liked about the first issue, was like you guys had the letter at the beginning of it. Well, I mean, obviously it's not going to go to the ones that are going to retailers and press and stuff have the letters, but it won't be in the first issue. But you guys actually say that you have the first 5 issues done, and that's such a big deal for a lot of retailers. Like, actually knowing that the comic's gonna be coming out on the regular it's a weird game changer these days, because if a comic's late, people kind of forget about it.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I think foremost, we were both like, and Oni's really good about that, about sort of setting those goals. So like we have enough room to get enough issues in the can. But yeah, like I've been on books where issues have been delayed and it's just like killed the momentum. And yeah, it's the last thing you want to do. So like like when Image just instituted their new policy of like where new books have to have 3 issues in the can and like take that skip month, like I think all that is really good thinking, because I feel like if I could go back and like do some of my books again, I would definitely like do them with that notion in mind of like, we have to, like, as much as it sucks that like you're busting your ass and nobody's getting paid, like if you're doing a create your own book on your own, everybody's sort of waiting on fictional money that isn't going to show up for another 3 months. But that's the thing that like that gets retailers on your side, and it keeps it definitely keeps readers invested, because it's a monthly medium. So if you miss a month, like it's on you if people forget you. Like there's so many things to occupy people's attention these days that like you can't give them the inch of like a month, because that's basically a mile these days. So
yeah, that was one thing I was kind of surprised about when I did like a retailer poll like last year, and when I talked to like a lot of them, one of the interesting things is like I guess normally when people think about like what's competition for comics, you think about like, like for print comics you think about like digital comics and you think about like Amazon and stuff like that, but they were like Netflix. And I was just like, I hadn't even thought about that. That absolutely makes sense, because like I could either choose to like, I don't know, watch like The Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime, or I could buy a comic and read it. And it's like, that's actually a legit question. And I don't know. It's kind of funny because like I don't think people think about that as like part of the equation, but it really is.
Yeah, I think more and more, like people just have what, a general sort of entertainment budget. And it's like, this is what I can afford to spend on like things that are not essential and like are strictly for my fun. And, like comics prices are going up, movie tickets are going up, brand new video game systems, like it all adds up. So, budgets will break at some point. So
even
like, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, even outside of financial budgets, like, I'm the parent of a toddler, and man, like, nothing will suck hours out of your schedule faster than having a kid. Like, even just like even in my normal schedule, I have a few hours a week where I can just kind of do whatever and have entertainment time. But my kid got sick a few days ago, and like all of that is gone. So it's like, basically, I haven't watched anything on TV or read anything for the last like 4 days, just because like I am playing catch up, because my kid got a virus and puked 6 times in a day.
Yeah, I have my best friend. He and his wife had a kid back in like July, and he came over to watch basketball with me not that long ago, and we were watching basketball, and their kid got sick, and like he'd only been gone for like 2.5 hours, and she's like, "You need to come home now," and he was like, "That was about as long as I normally get, so like that's actually pretty good. Any extra minute was like a win." And I'm like, wow, I guess I hadn't really thought about. I mean, like you're saying, there is like a time cost to it too, because it's like having a kid and having like, I don't know, like some like Netflix series are like, there's like comedies that are like hour long like episodes, and you're just like, this is ridiculous. Like things eat up a lot of time, and so that's an important part of it too. But yeah, that it's very interesting. What was I going to ask? Oh, so I have this is kind of random, but I think I was out to dinner with Charlie Chu when he got, I'm just guessing, because when he got, I think it was when he got the Jamie McKelvie variant in his email inbox, because like he was like, "Oh man, I just got something that was so awesome," and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, it's for this book that's coming up from Chris and Robert," and I'm just like, "Can I see it?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Son of a bitch." And I was just like, why did you even bring it up then? Because he was grinning like an idiot afterwards. Sorry, Charlie, you were grinning like an idiot. So I'm curious, like that as far as promotional seems like it's quite the feather in your cap, because Jamie is obviously a big deal, and doing a rumors cover for like the guy who is, Mr. Music, or him and Kieran are like Mr. Music in comics. Like, how did that come together?
That was, I mean, that I will take credit for that.
Sorry, Robert.
There's not a ton I could take credit for, but that was, like, I remember going to lunch with Charlie at Oni. Like, we went to a place around the block, and I remember at some point like saying like, we should get McKelvie to do the rumors cover, except with our main characters.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we were both instantly into it. And then it was, I remember I think I had asked Jamie like maybe 6 months later, like, "Hey, I have this idea, would you be into it?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And then then time passed, and then Robert came on, and then we actually started moving. So then I think it was Robert who followed up with him at New York Comic Con. Was that where you talked to him?
Yeah. And I think that's actually where I met him for the first time, and I was all nervous because I think he draws good.
I agree. I would be nervous too, because I also think he draws good.
But yeah, that was the easiest pitch I've ever made to an artist. Like,
yeah.
I could not have tailored a thing to a person more than that idea. Like, asking Jamie, like, "Hey, would you draw the rumors cover?" Like, that's. Yeah. I knew in my heart of hearts he was going to say yes, because I feel like I know Jamie well enough to know that like that is so in his wheelhouse that he would like move things around to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I was actually talking to my local retailer, and I was like talking about that book, because I just I put it in my pre-order because for once I actually remembered. So congratulations! I almost never remember to do that. So you guys made the cut. But anyways, and I specifically had talked about that one, and she was like talking about how like they're actually ordering like bigger obviously on both covers because it's like an AB cover, just because like they expect like the McKelvie one to be like really big. No offense, Robert, your art is also awesome, but that cover is pretty fantastic. I know. I feel bad. I'm like, man, let's talk about Jamie McKelvie for a bit, huh, Robert?
Yeah, no, you know what? That's cool. Listen, I get it. And you know what? He's a handsome man too.
He draws good. He looks good. Damn that McKelvie.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, I had to ask about like the you guys made like heart stress balls, right? For promotional items. I actually think that's awesome, except for the fact that I didn't get one. You guys are assholes. You guys are horrible.
I didn't get one.
What? Is Chris just like hoarding them at his place?
No, we sent them up. You have one?
Uh-oh.
Oh my
God.
This is where the relationship breaks.
Yep. This is where the rift starts.
I was given several for my signing tour. And then I had one that was like stuck in my bag, so I do have one. Okay. I'm holding it as we speak. It feels pretty good.
Tell us.
I'm sure we can get you one, Robert.
I asked. They're out, man. They sent them. We made them to send to retailers, so we made like a little, the little retailer goodie pack. But yeah, and that's actually something my wife came up with.
The stress ball?
Yeah. Yep. That was all my wife, Tiffany. She's a smart lady. And she also works in marketing. So, a lot of the book marketing ideas that I have been implementing have also come from her because she is smarter than me.
I was going to ask though, was there anything that was like, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess I would never expected like to really want a heart stress ball, but then you guys made it, and I was like, I want one. But was there anything that was kind of weird that you guys were like, nah, we can't do that. That's too weird.
Nope, I've just done everything. I've just been going nuts. Yeah. Like I made enamel pins. I've made stickers. Yeah, like I'm just going nuts.
I'm totally into the pins. I saw those. That was pretty sweet. Although I do have to say that like there was a time where you guys had you both had the same Twitter avatar, and it was confusing the living hell out of me.
Yeah,
we got that a lot.
But then you guys changed color.
I inverted mine. Yeah,
that was a good choice. I was like, I don't even know who's talking right now, even though it says your name right above it, and I'm just like, can't be bothered. Color.
Yeah.
I enjoyed confusing people. Like I was gonna continue rocking it as is, but I got tired of hearing about it, so I was just like, okay, like this is a conversation I don't need to have anymore, so I will make the sacrifice.
Now I have to ask, we've talked about Charlie a little bit, but the books at Oni, and Chris, you've worked with Boom prominently in the past, and you've worked with you worked with Monkey Brain too, but I'm curious, like, why'd you guys decide to work with Oni on this book?
Because Oni wanted to do it. That's the first, and most essential part is that I pitched it to them, and they were like, "We love this, and we want to do it." And then when we started talking to Robert, and then we started working out like actual details, like they, like they seem to my mind, they bent over backwards for us, like to make it work. So, we were like, this is what Robert's going to need to make, and like, here's what I need to make, and like, here is how far we see it going, and we'd like it to come out in 2016. And they were amenable to all of that, and they really. And I think it was a weird phenomenon for both Robert and I, of like this idea of like we're like, we have cachet, like we have this, like, I don't know, this like weird notion. There's something very flattering about that. Like when a publisher like wants to work with you, that like they have confidence in your, your ability, and in like just in your name, that like, oh, like these these people are of a certain level, and that's a especially for me, who's a giant neurotic, it's a real nice thing to have, of like that vote of confidence of like, we want to do this with you guys and we will do what we can to make it possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just them like believing in us and believing in the book is huge. And also just like, man, I really like everyone at Oni. Like everyone that we've dealt with so far has been like, a real peach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to say, when I was talking to Charlie about the book, he seemed pretty jacked about it, even though he wouldn't share details with me because he's a terrible, terrible jerk. But I mean, it seems like, most of the time when it seems in comics, when you hear about editors, it's like, at least like in the general conversation, it's in the negative light. But it seems like, Charlie's like, he's a great guy, and it seems like having somebody like that on your side who's like really believes in the book is kind of going to be a game changer.
Oh yeah, like I play Destiny with Charlie now.
Nice.
The once a week I have free time to play. Yeah, he's really good. It's kind of embarrassing. He's much better than me.
You don't play Destiny with him, Chris?
No, I've never been invited.
Oh
I see how it
man.
is.
Oh god.
Well,
So
you play on Xbox though, right?
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
Charlie was double systeming it.
Yeah, we play on PS4.
Oh man.
Because I played with him on Xbox, so that means he owns 2 copies of it.
Yes, yeah, he
Different
does.
systems.
Yeah, he definitely does.
That's a fun thing to learn.
He's a gaming badass. He is dedicated to Destiny. That is awesome. Well, I guess you get to play with Destiny with him, Robert, and Chris gets the stress ball. So I guess you guys each got like a little bit of an
That's a fair
advantage.
trade.
Guess it's even.
Yeah. Well, it's nice too because you got Charlie to carry you if he's like apparently a super badass at Destiny.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
But only at Destiny.
Oh.
He's not a super badass in person.
He is very good at ordering at restaurants because I like when we went to dinner, I was just like, I don't even know what to order, and he just like looked at the menu. It's like, don't worry, I've been here a lot, and then he ordered everything, and I was like, wow, all this food is really good, thank you. So I have to ask, like, you guys, you did some promotion on your own. Was Oni like helping out with that stuff? It seemed like they were kind of communicating with retailers at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they've been doing quite a bit on their own. I mean, the whole stress ball thing, like the retailer outreach. They did the Valentine's Day cards. I mean, I just have been the stuff that I've done on my own. It's been like, I have an idea. I'm going to just try this and see what happens. And then when something works, I tell Oni about it and say, hey, let's do this together. And when something doesn't work, I just don't tell anyone.
That one's just for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it seems like I don't know, that's one of the interesting things when it comes to creator-owned books is like, depending on who you go with, you're going to get a different amount of support. And like with Oni, you get Charlie as your editor, and then you get like promotional help, and that's got to be really helpful, especially with like, we're talking about time cost. Like you got to draw the book, Robert, and then you also have to promote the book, and Chris has got to write the book and everything like that. All that stuff kind of adds up time-wise.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's nice. It's super nice to have a publisher who has, like a PR person who can line up interviews for us. And, I can't remember the other, what is Shai's position to schedule signings and appearances and stuff. Like, yeah, that's amazing.
Well, Chris, you just did a signing tour, so are you guys going to do a sweet Heartthrob tour? I guess you probably can't, Robert. You're kind of like locked into home base.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely doing a lot of traveling right after the book launches, and a lot of that is conventions, but it looks like we're going to do a couple signings the week that the book launches, and then, obviously we'll be at Emerald City, and I'll also be doing the Kansas City. What is it? Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, and then Heroes Con, and a few other big shows.
Ooh, I've never been to Heroes before. I hear good things.
It's so great. I love it so much. You should. You should go. I'm
in Alaska. That is a hell of a commute for me.
It'll be worth it, man. Pork.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take you to Mertz.
Nice. The barbecue hookup is definitely that would be the secondary appeal. I've done the Alaska to New York Comic-Con thing, and like that very nearly killed me.
Yeah, this wouldn't be any better.
No, well, I mean, it's in Charlotte, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it would be 1 or 2 more flights, but I could probably do it. Not this year, but I'll see you guys at Emerald City Comic-Con, though. And that's because they're launching the book, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yep, pretty excited.
Well, you guys should be, but that's actually all I have for you guys. Thank you for coming on the show and chatting about the book with me, and I'll definitely be seeing you at Emerald City, and we can chat more.
Oh man, thanks so much for having us. I really appreciate it, David, and I love the show. It's fantastic.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel from Sketch.com. You can find this week's guests, Chris Sebela and Robert Wilson IV, on Twitter at @xtop and at Robert Wilson IV, respectively. And you can find their work in Heartthrob at Oni Press, starting with #1 on April 13th. You can find more sketch content at Sketched. That's SKTCHD.com. Follow us on Twitter at @SketchedComic. Like us on Facebook at /Sketched. And if you're an iTunes listener, give us a rating or review. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.